كتاب الله دستوري وخير.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Dear brothers and sisters, Esselamualeykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another Ilm Feed podcast. I'm your host, Fatıma, Barakatullah, and today I've got another excellent guest, and we've got some amazing topics that we're going to be talking about. I have with me today Talha. Talha is founder of Marital Arts, a Muslim women's organization that empowers women to have better and stronger family lives through having better and stronger marriages. Talha has also been a homeschooler, mashallah. She studied Islamic studies and tajweed also in Cairo in Egypt, mashallah. Her teacher and mentor is Sheikh Abu Talha, who happens to be her husband, and he's a scholar who, mashallah, graduated from the University of Medina. She's been part of mosque committees. She's been involved with youth projects. She's got a Islamic preschool that she runs, Iqra Preschool. Mashallah, really a superwoman, I think. So alhamdulillah, I'm really glad to have you here today with us, Talha. Assalamualeykum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
And I must say, her greatest quality is that she's one of my best friends, mashallah. And so, it makes it even more special that we're getting to have this conversation. Talha,
Mm-hmm.
I found it so romantic that, mashallah, your husband is your mentor.
Alhamdulillah.
And that's really a special gift, I think. What do you mean by your husband being your mentor?
Actually, when the proposal of my husband came back in 2001, I was really eager to learn about Islam. So one of the things that I was really looking for in a husband is that a person who can teach me and guide me, because there were so many groups, Islamic groups out there, and I was thinking, okay, I don't want to go into a wrong group, as you worry, because everyone wants to follow the correct path, the Quran and Sunnah. So when the proposal came, initially I declined because I thought he is such a knowledgeable person and I'm such a newbie. But then I thought to myself, you know what, he could be actually good for my deen. So if all else fails, then I'll just be his student. That's the kind of, because I was only 19 then.
Wow,
and I was 21 when I got married. So I started practicing when I was 19. So I was very keen to marry somebody who would actually guide me, who would be my teacher, who would be my mentor. So when his proposal came, I thought, you know what, he can be actually really good for my deen. So with that frame of mind, I looked into it, and alhamdulillah, he was so down to earth. And then one of the things that I discussed during my marriage talk was that, I really want to learn. Would you teach me? And I remember one of the things that he asked me during the marriage, talks, is how my Quran is. So he asked me to recite Surah Fatiha on the phone. So I recited Surah Fatiha, and he was like, okay. I didn't know what he meant by that. Okay. But then afterwards, he was very supportive, and he said, would you like to study abroad? And I said, yeah, of course. It was like my dream coming true. Initially, I wanted to go to Jeddah, but he said, you know what, we'll go to Egypt. But Qadarullah, when I went to Egypt, the teacher of Jeddah was in Egypt. So I had the best of both worlds. But from then onwards, he's been very supportive, and he's so much into education. And from then onwards, I always fall back on him to consult him and, ask him, sometimes pester him, or give me the source of this hadith and that hadith. And I tell him, you don't realize how much goodness you're actually taking from, giving me that time, because the ladies I'm teaching, everything that you teach me, it goes back to you. So I sometimes laugh and joke with him. I say, on the day of judgment, you'll be like, Ya Allah, where is all these deeds from? And, you wouldn't know. So sometimes I do tell him, you don't realize how much you actually support me in doing what I do.
That's so important though, isn't it? I mean, like, having a husband, a spouse, who not only has the same vision as you, right, but also is actually invested in your progress, your development. I think that's priceless, and it's really good that was something that you were mindful enough to think of, because I think a lot of the time today, you'd find a lot of, especially younger people, wouldn't necessarily bear some of those things in mind?
I mean, Fatima, it sounds like, it was such an easy sell, but actually it was quite a challenge to pursue him, in my marriage, because obviously, people in my family, they were a bit, unsure, because they were thinking, well, because I don't know about you, but in Bangladesh, we have this thing where the northerners don't get married to the southerners, So he's from the south and I'm from the north.
No, I don't know about this.
It was such a, struggle, but some struggles are worth it. You have to be mindful of the hadith of the Prophet, like people marry for different reasons.
Yeah.
And if you marry for the deen, subhanallah, it is so true. You do find that eventually you do see the benefits of it. You just have to hold on,
Yeah.
And that is something that I saw in not only my life, but in other sisters, marriages as well. If you make the focus of marrying because of the deen, Allah blesses it in a way that you cannot imagine, So, yeah.
So, mashallah, you've already mentioned that you're originally from Bangladesh. Tell us a little bit about, I know that you're very active in London, especially in East London. I mean, everybody knows you, mashallah, from what I can see. So you've, mashallah, touched a lot of people's lives. But tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of like, where did Talha come from? Where were you raised? Which part of London? And what kind of family situation were you from?
Well, I came to Britain when I was 5 or 6 in 1985.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
with my
By the way,
father.
a lot of this stuff I don't know as well, even though I'm a very good friend of Talha's. It's amazing that we haven't actually necessarily discuss some of this stuff, so it's really nice for me.
Well.
Yeah, it's nice for me to be able to talk to you like this. So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so I came with my family in 1985, and my father became very ill, so we had to go back to Bangladesh because he was diagnosed with cancer. So he wanted to basically have last days in Bangladesh. So we went back to Bangladesh in 87. SubhanAllah, he passed away in Ramadan. Allah have mercy on his soul. Then we came back, and then basically I was orphaned, when I was about 6, 7. So I grew up as an orphan, and it was very difficult to see life, without a father figure in my house. We were children of say three girls and one boy. My mother became a widow when she was in her 30s. So as you can imagine, it was very difficult for her. And, of course we had male relatives, but there's nothing like having a father who would stay. So
Absolutely.
that was my childhood, alhamdulillah. And I think, it's really, amazing to kind of see how even the Prophet, he had a upbringing as an orphan, and I can really relate to that. And I think growing up as an orphan gives you such a great power of empathy with other people. You really can feel other people's pain. And I think when I see my role in the community, how different sisters would confide in me and how they would tell me certain things that they're going through, and I just think to myself, why do they disclose all these information? But naturally, I feel if you feel that somebody has genuine interest in your life, you would want to open up to them. So Allah had a better plan. I grew up as an orphan, perhaps to feel the pain of what people are going through, And I'm telling you, Fatima, sometimes sisters would tell me things, and I would be thinking to myself, SubhanAllah, that's such a great trust that they have included me in their life or in their trials. And I would just keep quiet, but I would think to myself, I feel so honored to be part of their struggles or their difficulties. And I know they would not tell anyone about what's going on, but it has really given me an insight of what sisters really go through, and sometimes I feel so privileged that I'm part of somebody's life and I'm able to help people in the ways that maybe they can't seek help.
SubhanAllah, like just hearing about you being an orphan, it reminds me of my mum actually, because my mum was an orphan. Her father passed away before she was born. And so she grew up with her mum, but she was raised by her elder brother. And one of the things that when she talks to me about her childhood, I really get is that you can't be spoilt as an orphan.
No.
You really can't be spoilt. And in fact, in a way, you start fulfilling the role of being at other people's service at quite a young age.
Yeah.
And I definitely can see, you know, what you're saying about having empathy. I think my mum also became that kind of person, you know, who people felt they can confide in and who just had this very human touch. And I see that in you, you know, seeing the work that you've been doing over the years. And mashallah, you've got that kind of quality of being a mentor, of being somebody who really cares. And that's such an important quality, isn't it? Especially when we're talking about the delicate topic of marriage. So tell us, like, going from that experience, right, growing up as an orphan and then moving to the UK, growing up here, was it in East London that you grew up? Yeah,
East London is my place. Alhamdulillah. I've been living in here for a long time, and when I started to learn about Islam, one of my good friends from primary school, she introduced me to a circle that was taking place from around the corner to here in Whitechapel. And that's a circle that really made me find myself, because I was continuously going to halakha, weekly halakha. And interestingly, I still attend the halakha. The only difference is I teach, you know, before I was learning.
You're running the halakha now,
Yes,
mashallah.
alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And it was through the halakha that my husband was introduced to me, you know. So that halakha is very special.
Full of barakah, mashallah.
Full of barakah, you know. I mean, I started attending in 1999, and the circle is still continuing till this day.
And don't you think that halakas are so important? Like,
so important.
People don't realize the importance of doing something weekly.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis, but even weekly, you know, because that's very regular. And just having that little space to go, refocus, rethink about Allah, you know, because the dunya is just like all around you, constantly pulling you and away from Allah, constantly telling you other things are important. You come together with your Muslim brothers and sisters, you have those moments where you refocus, and then you go back out into the world, refreshed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mashallah.
I mean, the brothers, they have the weekly Jummah, you know, where they go and they get reminded. But sisters, what do they have? I mean, not everyone can attend
go to
Jummah, isn't it? You know, I mean, some can, mashallah, but majority they can't, you know. So I feel they need a time to come together and be reminded, you know, about the purpose of, you know, why they're here. And, you know, this is one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ used to do. He used to give allocated time to the women, you know. So it's very important that women's growth is also something that's taken care of, you know. So
why marriage? Why? Tell us first a little bit about marital arts and the sorts of activities that you've been in, that marital arts is involved in.
I've been involved with different dawah organizations or different community activities, but what I realized is that home is like a very important space, and if the culture of the home is healthy and Islamic, then that actually develops everyone in the home. So it's important, the person who's in charge of the home, which is the homemaker, mother, wife, her needs to be taken care of. You know, because she is the one who's taking care of the needs of others, but who's taking care of her need? So that's when I thought, you know what, a lot of my work in the community has been taking care of her, being like the older sister or the mentor. I thought it's about time that we actually did something so that we can create a bit of an awareness of the need of the homemaker, the mother, the wife, you know, the one who's always giving. Because as you know, you cannot give if you don't have. And I don't like this whole notion of people just giving and not having anything for themselves, because, you know, you don't want to be like a candle that gives light to others but burns itself out, you know, or you can't pour from an empty vessel. So if you imagine the mother, the wife, she's like the vessel. She needs to keep refueling, you know, and marital arts helps her to refuel by making sure she takes care of herself, her spiritual growth, her, you know, mind, body and soul growth, because it's important that a person like a woman is taking care of herself, and that is done with no guilt. So we are like an organization that helps her to think, okay, what am I doing for myself? What is my passion? What is my time, you know? And one of the ways that we encourage her to find her time is by attending the circle on a regular basis. So that's her time, that's her space, and that's her moment. And, subhanAllah, a lot of sisters, they tell me, Talha, every time when I come to the circle, I go away feeling refreshed, like new sense of energy. And I'm thinking that's the idea. Because every one of us, we need to feel refueled. And that Saturday halakha is that, some of the attendees, they described it as, it's like a spiritual lifeline.
Really? SubhanAllah.
Yeah, because they feel really like, whatever they've gone through the week, when they come to the halakha, it's time to refocus. It's time to reconnect with their purpose of being here.
Because being a parent and being married and being a parent is tough, right?
Yes.
That you do have ups and downs.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that people often underestimate is, when you see somebody who has a great marriage and it's very visible that they've got a great marriage and they, sometimes people often assume that, okay, this person has had it lucky. They got lucky, they met this perfect person and they just happened to click and they're living happily ever after because they're lucky, right? I don't think people realize or, appreciate sometimes that actually everyone who has a great family culture and has a great marriage, they've had to put work into that, right?
Absolutely, 110%. I always say in my marriage workshop and talks that having a healthy marriage is a bit like having a healthy weight, where you have to make sure you do the exercise, you have to eat well, and you have to be mindful of, how you're, leading a lifestyle. You have to have a healthy lifestyle choices. So similarly, a healthy marriage doesn't
just going to come out of the blue.
Not at all.
Happen overnight.
if you think, if there was one marriage that was problem free, it would have been the marriage of the Prophet ﷺ with his wife. But even then, we know there were times where he had to move away and rethink. And we know the story is mentioned in Surah Ahzab. Where the wives, they were given the choice. What do you want? Do you want the glitter of this dunya or the Prophet ﷺ? So why is it? It's to show us that in relationship things are going to happen, but it's not the end of the world.
There are ups and downs.
Yeah, it's about how you manage it. And even in my marriage, I've had arguments, disagreements, but it's not the end of the world. It's how you manage it. It's human being. It's human nature that when you have a relationship, you are going to have some ups and downs, but it's how you manage those challenges. I think it's very important that we have a strong commitment to making our marriage work, and not think, I'm having a bit of problem, that's it. Not be so quick to rush to the D word, because
the D word.
Yeah, the D word, divorce.
The D word, the J word. These are the dangerous words, right?
No, because I do find that nowadays, people feel that, if there's some difficulties you're going through in a marriage, that's it, Divorce should be the last thing that comes to mind, not the first thing,
So do you think that, divorce is something that comes to people's minds too quickly nowadays?
Of course. I've worked with so many different, sisters that they feel, okay, I'm going through this problem, I don't think I can manage. And we say, no, okay, hold on. Why can't you manage? What's going on? And then, sometimes I would see that, actually the marriage is not the problem. She is going through her own personal issues, She feels overwhelmed. There was one particular case, subhanAllah, obviously I'm not going into the details, just to give you an idea. I had a, sister, she was saying, I feel so overwhelmed and he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. And then I was listening to her and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, she just sounds like a very over-exhausted person, So then I said to her, so what do you do for yourself? She said, I don't do anything. I don't have time to do anything. I've got little ones, the typical story. And I said, you know what? It's really important that you do something for yourself. And that whole aspect of self-care I was talking about. Yeah. So then I just left it. And, every so often, people would call me up and they would say, Umm Talha, you don't realize that piece of advice you gave me, I tried to implement. And I can't tell you how much of a difference it has made in my marriage. And I would be thinking to myself, what did I say to you? Because I'm speaking to so many different people. And she would remind me, you said to me to take care of my needs, to take care of myself. And that's what I did. As a result, it had an impact in my marital life. So I thought, wow, sometimes, we think marriage is the thing that's creating problems in our life, but it could be that we have our personal issues. Maybe we're overexhausted. Maybe we have an emotional wound that we need to attend to, because don't forget, marriage is about two people. And if the one party is going through some difficulties, of course it's going to come into the marriage life or marital life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very important that women take care of themselves before they think, okay, my marriage is actually not working, They need to look at, okay, what are the things that's actually contributing to the problems or issues? I'm not saying that, there are genuine concerns with regards to marriage. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that sometimes if you're going through difficulties, try to analyze what is it that's creating the problem. And don't think divorce is the solution, Just think before you rush to, or before you even think about, okay, this is not working. Ask yourself, why isn't it working? So I guess marital arts is about making people think deeply about their marital life, reassess or refocus.
So I've noticed that you have an annual conference, right? You do Ramadan preparation seminars. You have a Dazzle and Dine event.
Yes, we do.
So that's definitely about self-care, right?
Definitely.
And a Hajj preparation workshop. And you have courses and you have the regular halakha that you mentioned. So what I really liked was 3 things that I noticed that marital arts likes to focus on. I wanted you to go into some of those. The first, I think you've already started talking about, and that is self-care. The second is relationships, and the third is parenting. So could you just go into what do you mean by each of those?
Definitely. Well, self-care is the most important aspect of what we do. We try to get women to think about who they are, what are they doing, and their general self, well-being, because it's very important that a woman is well within herself, her mind, body, and soul. Because if she's well within herself, whatever she does, whether it's work, family, parenting, that will have an impact. She will be conscious, parent when she's parenting. She'll be a present wife when she's actually dealing with her husband. So it's about her wellness, And
it's like the whole airplane scenario. When they do the intro, when you enter an airplane, they say, if anything goes wrong, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, before you attend to the kids, right? Whereas like a parent's instinct is kids, other people first, especially as mothers, we have that instinct.
Yeah.
But if you were to do that in an airplane scenario, for example, you'd be dying or you'd be suffering, and then other people would also suffer in the end. So it's kind of like that.
Absolutely.
You've got to take care of your own basic needs.
Absolutely.
And nurturing first.
Yeah.
In order to be able to serve
others,
your family and better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, when Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran, in Surah Tahrim, the ayah that's usually mentioned in the family conferences and, marriage, talks, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ نَارًا. Interestingly, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the self first, save yourself. Then your family. So I think it's very important that we prioritize our needs. Because if we are good within ourselves, then inshallah we have more good to give to our loved ones.
And an interesting, just a little thought that came to my mind as you mentioned that was, I was reading the autobiography of Barack Obama's wife. What's her name? Sorry, Michelle Obama. Of course, Michelle Obama. And I love reading biographies because I feel like you really get into understanding people. And so one of the things I loved about her autobiography, she talked about her marriage, and she talked about, and you know how they are, right? Like when you see Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, forget about their politics and all that, right? But just as a couple, they seem to be really excellent and amazing couple, right? Like really get on, and I think the book really proves that as well. Like if her account of their marriage, etc. However, she does actually talk about having marriage counselling. And what I found interesting about it is that she, during her marriage counselling, found that it was actually issues that she had personally, things that she wasn't feeling good about, that she realized her husband couldn't fix, but she was expecting her marriage to fix. And because she wasn't getting that, she was blaming the marriage or blaming her husband, whereas it was actually something that she needed to do, like self-work, right? And she had to go away and work on that and work on her own happiness and well-being in order to bring that sense of well-being into the marriage, rather than expecting marriage to be, or your husband, your spouse to be the one who's going to fulfill you or complete you, and blaming them when that doesn't happen, right? So
absolutely,
I found that quite insightful.
This is something that I can really appreciate, because when I see sisters who are going through problems or some issues in their marriage, I would encourage them, look, you need to do things for yourself. You need to meet up with your, say, friends or people that you like to spend time with. Yeah. Because when you do that, you feel a sense of, fulfillment, and also you feel a bit more happier. So when you feel like that, you will bring more to the marriage. And often they would think to themselves, well, I can't do that because I don't have no time. I said, no, you need to make time. Yeah. That is not, a luxury. That's a need, you know. Often they will look at me as if like, Umm Talha, I really don't have time. No, I say, look, where is it that you can make the time, because sometimes we have it in our mind, we don't have time. But it's about making time for a need that you have. But very often, I don't know what it is, in our Muslim community, there is a sense of guilt, like if I do things for myself. And I tell them, no, don't feel guilty, because this is for you. When you feel fulfilled, when you feel like refreshed, then you have much more to give to your family. So look at it like this. It's an investment. It's not something that you are taking as a privilege. It's a need. So when they do that, it really does make a huge difference, and sometimes I think...
Their husband benefits,
absolutely.
Their children benefit.
Like sisters tell me that, because when they come to the halakha, obviously they are having that tea time, because we have a tea break where we get the sisters to mingle and have a chai and a chat. And that would really, help sisters to feel like there's a sense of belonging. They've got friends. And sometimes women like to chat with other women, and all we need is having a few girlfriends to, talk about our emotions, what we're going through. Sometimes men, they may not understand our emotional need. We need certain companionship.
I think there's different people who, like my mum, she always says, there's different types of love.
Exactly.
Love has different compartments. The love you have for your best friend or for your friends is a different thing, and what you get from them and from that relationship is different to what you get from your relationship with your spouse.
Yes.
And then your relationship with your children, your relationship with your siblings. So I think recognizing that all of those relationships are part of the rich tapestry of being a human being.
Absolutely.
And being willing to invest in them. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think women should take care of their companionship, their friends, their girlfriends.
Definitely. As I'm getting older, I really feel that. I really feel that, investing in my girlfriends and my relationship with women is just amazing. It's just so important. It's so enriching, and it's so like, it fills me up,
Absolutely. I mean, whenever I meet up with you, Fatima, my husband knows, I would tell him that, I'm meeting up with my friend Fatima. He would tease me. And, when I meet up with you and we have a nice, gup chup, and then I go back.
Gup shop.
He can really see that. I feel so like, in high spirit, it's like a buzz, you think, I met my friend. And you talk about the things that you want to talk about, because sometimes we have different needs to what they want to talk about. They talk about things that interest them. That's fine. But it's not something that you have, great enthusiasm in talking about. But with your friends, girlfriends, you want to talk about things that interest you. And you could talk for hours, isn't it, And that's something that I think every woman should prioritize.
Definitely.
And every woman should actually seek out to do on a regular basis.
And again, as we were saying, just as marriage needs nurturing, friendships need nurturing as well, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make the time, you've got to consider them important enough to actually spend time with that person, do things that will deepen that relationship, have experiences, go out, spend time together at home even, get together with kids as well, I think all of those different aspects help us to deepen friendships, because even though we live in like an amazing, massive city like London, I think a lot of people are lonely.
You know, Fatima, what can I say? A lot of the sisters, you know, in London, in a city, I find that although there are so many ways to, like, you know, communicate with people, but there is still this sense of feeling isolated and lonely.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, you know, like recently I've observed that, you know, many sisters, they, you know, say that they're very lonely. And one of the things that they want from their husband is to spend more time with them. But that's quite impractical because the man is working, and when he comes home, obviously the time is limited. But to fill that void of loneliness, I think it's important that we seek out company, and we don't always depend on others to actually fill that void for us. So having girlfriends, having good companions, having people that you can see who would speak to you about things that you want to talk about is such a wonderful way to come out of that loneliness, you know, hole. And I don't think anyone should feel, you know, bad or feel, you know, like, that they are actually seeking out, you know, attention, because that's something that every human need has, and it's okay to feel. I mean,
I think women feel guilty a lot, right? Especially mothers, they feel very guilty. I'm actually doing something fun, and I don't have my kids with me. But subhanallah, you know, there's no need to feel guilty. You know, you're taking care of their needs.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time for this, there's a time for that, you know, isn't it? You have to be mindful that, okay, you know, there are times where you're going to be at home taking care of the family, but also there needs to be a time where you can actually attend to your needs as well, you know?
Yeah.
And
you don't need to be a martyr, basically.
No, definitely not.
So the first thing that you said that Marital Arts likes to encourage and focus on is self-care. The second is relationships. What do you mean by relationships?
Relationship in marriage is very important focus for us. We find there's a lot of say attention out there in the community or in businesses where people focus on giving you a great wedding, you know, like the wedding day. There's so much out there to encourage you to have this type of wedding or that type of wedding. Then we have nothing. Then we have, you know, Sharia council where you go there to get your divorce. You know, so it's like,
okay,
get married, and then the divorce, you know, council where they can help you to get khula or divorce. But there's nothing in between to actually help you to strengthen, to, you know, nurture the relationship so that you are having a long-lasting, fulfilling relationship. So we are trying to focus on giving sisters, or rather, I would say, sharing the recipe, because as women, we like to share good recipes. It's like sharing the recipe for a good, happy, long-lasting marriage.